Picture this: you're sitting at the dinner table, plates cleared, and the conversation drifts toward bills, retirement, or what happens when. Suddenly the mood shifts. Your parent stiffens, you feel awkward, and before long, the moment is gone. Have you been there? Talking about money with aging parents can feel like stepping onto thin ice. One wrong move, and everything cracks, but it doesn't have to be that way. Today, let's explore how to have these conversations with warmth, respect, and without turning family time into a battlefield. When it comes to conversations about money, most of us instinctively reach for numbers first. We ask about balances, budgets, or bills, hoping to get straight to the point. But with aging parents, that approach can backfire quickly. Numbers can feel cold, like an audit, and may put your loved ones on the defensive. A softer way in is to begin with a story. Stories are familiar, safe, and full of emotion. They remind your parents that money is not just about calculations. It's woven into the fabric of your shared life. Think about how different it feels to say, "Mom, how much do you have saved for retirement?" versus, "Mom, do you remember how you used to stretch every dollar during back to school season so we never felt left out?" That shift changes the tone instantly. Instead of shining a spotlight on their current financial situation, you're shining a light on their wisdom and resilience. Parents here, you've taught us something valuable. Instead of, you're being questioned. It's like opening a door with a key instead of pushing it with force. Stories also act as gentle bridges. They connect the past to the present. Maybe you bring up the way your father insisted on saving for family vacations, no matter how tight money was. That memory can lead into a conversation about how he prioritizes experiences over possessions, and then naturally into how he manages his money now. The focus isn't on exposing numbers, but on honoring values. It's far easier to discuss where things stand today when it feels like a continuation of lessons already shared. This approach also helps your parents feel respected. For many seniors, money equals independence. If they sense you're swooping in to take control, walls go up. But by starting with stories, you're saying, "We value what you've done and what you know." That builds trust, and trust makes room for honesty. A parent who feels seen is much more likely to open up about what they're worried about, whether it's the rising cost of healthcare or simply not wanting to be a burden. There's another hidden benefit. Beginning with stories helps you uncover the why behind financial decisions, not just the what. You may discover that your parents' frugality isn't about lack, but about fear of running out, or that their generosity with grandkids comes from remembering how little they had growing up. When you understand the story behind the choices, the numbers suddenly make a lot more sense. So, when the time comes, resist the urge to lead with figures. Instead, pull up a memory, a moment, or a family lesson. That shared history may be the most powerful tool you have for opening a conversation about money without closing hearts. One of the biggest challenges in talking to parents about money is that it can feel like you're trying to take over. For them, financial independence is often tied to dignity. They've been the decision makers for decades, and the idea of handing over control may stir up fear, pride, or even shame. That's why it's so important to frame these conversations as teamwork, not takeover. When parents feel you're standing beside them instead of above them, the tension softens and cooperation becomes possible. Think of it like being on the same rowing boat. If you're paddling in opposite directions, the boat just spins in circles. But if you match your rhythm, you both move forward with less effort. The message you want to send is, we're in this boat together, and our goal is the same, to keep our family steady and safe. It takes the focus away from power and puts it on partnership. A practical way to show teamwork is through language. Instead of saying, "I need to know what accounts you have," you might say, It could help us, as a family, to make sure we know where things are in case you ever need support. The difference is subtle but powerful. The first feels like a demand, the second feels like collaboration. Words like together and support signal that you're not trying to strip away independence. You're trying to prepare as a team. You can also reinforce this by giving your parents clear roles in the process. For example, you might suggest, "Dad, maybe you can share the strategies that helped you budget all these years, and I can help organize everything digitally so it's easier to keep track of." This way, they remain the source of wisdom while you offer tools that make their life easier. The baton isn't snatched from their hand. It's being passed gradually and with respect, like in a relay race. There's another benefit to framing it this way: it protects your relationship. Parents who feel cornered often shut down or lash out, but when they see you as an ally, they're more likely to open up about worries they've kept private. They may even surprise you with relief, admitting that they've wanted to talk but didn't know how to start. When you approach money talks as teamwork, you turn a potentially divisive subject into a shared project. It becomes less about who holds the power and more about how the family can work together to make life smoother for everyone. And in that sense, money becomes less of a wall and more of a bridge, one you're building side by side. When most people sit down to talk about money with their parents, they go straight for the facts. What's in the account? How are the bills paid? Do you have a will? While those questions may be necessary, they can feel intrusive, like shining a flashlight into private corners. A gentler and more respectful way in is to ask for wisdom instead of facts. By doing this, you shift the tone of the conversation from interrogation to mentorship, which many parents find far more natural and dignified. Imagine asking, "What's one financial decision you're really proud of?" Or, looking back, "What do you wish you had done differently with money?" These kinds of questions invite stories instead of statistics. They allow your parents to step into the role they know best: teacher, guide, and life-experienced elder. Most parents, especially as they age, want to feel that the lessons they've learned, sometimes through trial and error, will live on in the next generation. You're giving them that chance. Asking for wisdom also uncovers the why behind their choices, which is often more valuable than the numbers themselves. A parent might tell you how they scrimped and saved during their early marriage because they feared repeating the financial struggles of their own parents. Or maybe they'll share how a bold investment decision taught them patience, or how generosity to family always felt more important than building wealth. These insights give context, helping you understand not just what's in the bank, but the values that shaped every decision along the way. There's another benefit too. It builds connection. Instead of feeling judged or cornered, your parents feel honored. They see that you're not just trying to prepare for the future, you're trying to learn from their journey. That respect can open doors to deeper honesty. A parent who starts out telling you about their smartest decision might then admit to their biggest worry, like not knowing how long their savings will last. The wisdom-first approach creates safety for truth to emerge naturally. And don't underestimate the bonding that happens here. These conversations can turn into storytelling sessions you'll treasure long after the finances are sorted. You may learn things you never knew about your family's resilience, sacrifices, or dreams. In the end, facts will help you plan, but wisdom will help you understand. And when it comes to talking about money with aging parents, understanding often matters just as much as information. When families approach money talks with aging parents, the conversation often jumps straight to the big topics: inheritance, wills, and long-term care. While those are important, they can also feel heavy and distant. For many parents, Those conversations stir up anxiety because they highlight the idea of decline or the end. A gentler entry point is to focus first on daily life, the here and now. Everyday money choices often feel more manageable, less intimidating, and they create natural openings for broader planning later on. For example, instead of asking, "What's your plan for the next 20 years?" you might ask, "Are there any monthly expenses that feel like a headache right now?" That question doesn't push them into a conversation about mortality. It simply addresses stress in their daily routine. Maybe your mom finds it overwhelming to keep track of subscription renewals, or your dad struggles with remembering when certain bills are due. Helping them set up autopay or consolidating accounts may feel like a small fix, but it can bring tremendous relief and build trust for bigger talks later. Daily life focus also makes the conversation relatable. Parents may not be ready to think about legal documents or estate transfers, but they can easily talk about grocery budgets, rising utility bills, or the cost of medication. These topics feel immediate and practical. And when you show you care about what makes their present life easier, you demonstrate that your concern isn't just about inheritance or the future. It's about their comfort and dignity today. Another advantage is that small, present, focused changes can ripple outward. A discussion about trimming unnecessary expenses might naturally lead into questions about long-term sustainability. Helping with health insurance paperwork might spark a bigger conversation about healthcare planning. By keeping it grounded in the everyday, you allow the bigger topics to unfold organically instead of forcing them. There's also a psychological benefit. The future can feel abstract and intimidating, especially for older parents who may not want to confront it. But daily choices are concrete and familiar. Talking about this month's bills or ways to make grocery shopping easier keeps the tone lighter and more action-oriented. It feels less like a lecture and more like problem-solving together. When you focus on daily life first, you're not avoiding the future. You're simply building a foundation of trust. Once your parents see that you respect their current needs and routines, they'll be more open when the time comes to plan for what lies ahead. In that way, the small steps today pave the way for the bigger steps tomorrow. One of the most overlooked parts of having a tough conversation is where it happens. When families talk about money with aging parents, the setting can make or break the moment. If the conversation starts right after opening a stressful bill or in the middle of a busy holiday dinner, emotions are already running high and defensiveness comes quickly. That's why choosing neutral ground is so important. It's not just about the words you say, but the environment in which you say them. Think about how much easier it is to open up during a quiet walk, a relaxed coffee outing, or while tending the garden together. These spaces carry no financial baggage. They're places where your parents feel at ease, not pressured. Just like a calm backdrop can make a painting more beautiful, a peaceful setting can make a delicate subject feel less intimidating. Instead of bracing for conflict, your parents can lean into the natural flow of the conversation. Neutral ground also helps level the emotional playing field. At the kitchen table, where bills pile up, parents might feel cornered. In your home, they may feel like guests being lectured. But in a shared or neutral space, like a park bench or even during a Sunday drive, the conversation feels more like a chat than a confrontation. It's similar to how some of the most important talks between parents and children happen not face to face, but side by side in the car, where eye contact isn't required and the pressure feels lighter. Another benefit of neutral ground is that it gives you both an out. If the conversation becomes too heavy, you can shift to talking about the scenery, the coffee, or a funny memory without it feeling like avoidance. The change of subject happens naturally because the space itself provides distractions that can ease the tension. This flexibility often prevents the talk from escalating into arguments. It's also worth noting that choosing neutral ground shows intention. It communicates, without words, that you're not ambushing your parents. You've thought about their comfort, their dignity, and the importance of creating the right conditions. That act alone can make them more willing to listen and share. In the end, where you talk is just as critical as how you talk. By setting the stage on neutral ground, you make space for openness, respect, and calm. The goal is to create an environment where money feels less like a threat and more like a shared subject, one that can be approached with curiosity, patience, and love. When money conversations get uncomfortable, silence often enters the room. Many people rush to fill that silence, repeating the same question or pressing harder, thinking it will push the discussion forward. But with aging parents, respecting silence and boundaries is just as important as asking the right questions. Silence doesn't always mean rejection. It can mean they need time to process, to summon courage, or simply to find the right words. Allowing that pause shows patience and respect, and it reassures your parents that you're not there to bulldoze them into answers. Imagine asking your dad about his insurance plans and watching him look down, fiddling with his hands. The silence stretches. Instead of immediately jumping in with, "Dad, did you hear me?" you could let the moment breathe. Maybe you shift the subject to something lighter, or you say, "That's a lot to think about. Take your time." This signals that you're not in a rush and that you care more about his comfort than about ticking off a checklist. That simple patience can transform defensiveness into trust. Boundaries work the same way. Your parents may say, "I don't want to talk about that right now," or "Let's save that for another time." It's tempting to push back, especially if you're worried about their security, but forcing the issue can damage the relationship. Respecting their boundary doesn't mean the conversation is over forever. It just means it's postponed until they're ready. Often, honoring that boundary opens the door for them to bring it up later, when they feel more in control. There's also something powerful in showing that you can handle no without frustration. Parents, especially as they age, may fear losing authority in the family. When you accept their limits gracefully, you're reassuring them that they still have agency. That reassurance can make them more open in the long run because they don't feel cornered. Silence and boundaries may feel like obstacles, but they're actually part of the rhythm of trust building. Just as a song needs pauses between notes, a conversation needs space between questions. Giving your parents time and room honors both their independence and their humanity. And in that space, what begins as silence can often grow into honesty, shared on their terms, in their own time. Money talks often carry a reputation for being tense, awkward, or even combative. One way to ease that weight is to take them out of the category of big, scary events and fold them into family traditions. When something becomes routine, it loses its sharp edges. Instead of waiting until a crisis forces the subject, you can create a rhythm where money check-ins are as natural as sharing a meal or calling on birthdays. Building traditions around these talks not only normalizes them, but also strengthens family bonds in the process. For example, imagine making it a habit to sit down with your parents once a month over Sunday morning coffee. The setting is familiar and comfortable, and the expectation is already there. It's just part of how your family connects. Instead of, "We need to talk about money," it becomes, "It's our coffee catch-up time." This simple shift lowers defenses because the talk feels predictable and safe rather than abrupt and threatening. Traditions also add an element of warmth to what could otherwise be clinical. You might decide that every holiday season includes not just gift giving but also a gentle conversation about year-end finances. What worked? What was stressful? And what goals to set for the year ahead? Linking it to a family event frames the discussion as part of caring for one another, not as a burden or interrogation. It's woven into the fabric of family life, right alongside the fun and laughter. Another benefit is continuity across generations. If your children or nieces and nephews see you modeling open, respectful conversations with their grandparents, they absorb the idea that talking about money is a healthy family practice, not a taboo. In this way, you're not only helping your parents, but also passing down a legacy of openness that may prevent future misunderstandings. There's also flexibility in how these traditions look. For some families, it may be casual check-ins during a walk together. For others, it could be a quarterly, family finance night, where everyone shares updates and tips. The point isn't the format, it's the consistency. Repetition creates comfort, and comfort invites honesty. By building traditions around money conversations, you transform them from dreaded events into familiar rituals. Over time, these talks stop feeling like disruptions and start feeling like another way your family shows care. And that's the real power of tradition. It turns what could divide into something that connects. Talking about money with aging parents doesn't have to be tense. With stories, teamwork, and respect, these conversations can actually bring families closer. And who knows, you may even uncover family wisdom you didn't expect. Have you tried having this kind of talk in your family? Share your story in the comments below. Your experience may help another family take that first step with more courage and love.